Kathleen Peterson from NJSBA and for Karen and governance for facilitating that. And we are jumping right to our preschool presentation. So I will give it over to Mr. Alexis.
Okay, thank you. We have Dr. Jones and Ms. Bauer on the agenda, so we invite you forward. And good. Oh, we have.
I brought my Sharon Levitt.
Terrific.
Mrs. Levitt. Mrs.
Terrific.
Levitt. Okay. Do you want to say something?
Sure.
She can be the clicker.
I can do it. Mrs. Lovett can click. Good evening. I'm so used to talking this way with our audience. Good evening. We thought it would be a great presentation to highlight our preschool this year. This was the first year we combined 3s and 4s. We updated and adopted our new creative curriculum. So we wanted to take this opportunity tonight to recognize everything that we did with both of the classes. We had a lot of presentations, guest speakers. Mrs. Lovett actually brought a lot of them in. So we are hoping to have some similarities for next year, but we may not necessarily have the same presenters, but we will have others. So it's really fun. So we'll highlight everything that we that they did. I'd like to also mention Mrs. Wyko, who helped put together this presentation as well. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Bauer and Mrs. Lovett.
Are you the clicker? Not yet. Sorry. You can. It doesn't matter. Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Danielle Bauer. I'm going into my 13th year at Gillette. I've taught first grade kindergarten and the last few years pre-K here. As Dr. Jones said, that Michelle Wyko wasn't able to be here, but we worked on the presentation together. Our program currently uses the creative curriculum where students learn through various studies. This year we studied units on trees, pets, balls, roads, and insects. Due to my amazing team of paras and generous volunteers, we were fortunate to have several presentations for our students. My paraprofessional, Sharon Levitt, she was able to provide us with an arborist, a dog trainer and dog groomer, a world-renowned soccer ball juggler, an entomologist, and a beekeeper. The joke this year became, who doesn't Sharon know? And my other wonderful para, Florencia Squisiato, helped me to provide us with a visit from our DPW. And of course, none of this would have been possible if it were not for the volunteers who so generously gave up their time to share their skills and their knowledge with us. You have the tree study. Okay, so the first study that we did was the study on trees. Through exploration and discovery, we learned the characteristics of trees, which animals live in trees, what food comes from trees, the parts of trees, how trees change with the various seasons, and who takes care of trees. You could switch. We were fortunate to have a visit from our arborist, Michael Middlesdorf, and he was able to share with us how he takes care of trees and the benefits that trees give to our lives. And we also studied measurement through trees. So the picture you see here is us using a string to measure the width of the tree. And we adopted this particular tree outside of the Gillette playground. And that was the tree we studied all year with the different seasons and how the trees change. The next study was the pet study, and we talked about what kind of animals make for good pets, where do pets live, what do pets eat, who cares for pets, and how do pets make us feel. We welcomed a visit from dog trainer, and you go to the next one, Jean Rosenthal, and groomer Melanie Sovalich. The students were so excited to meet their dogs and see all of the tricks that they could perform. We learned how dogs are trained and how to care for dogs. And the students also got the opportunity, as you can see, to come up 2 at a time and pet the dogs. The next unit was the ball unit. We explored different types of balls, how people use balls, and how balls bounce and roll. The unit was a particularly fun one for the students because we learned so much about balls through play and experimentation. Although the visit from the dogs was tough to beat as our favorite, our assembly with freestyle soccer champion and Long Hill alumni Nick Seda might have topped it. We invited all of Gillette schools. We invited all of the other grades to join us for an assembly with Nick, and they were dazzled by his tricks and his ball skills. And the fun continued when he had volunteers come up, as you can see from that picture, to play games and win prizes. And then, next one. Our next study was a study on roads. We learned characteristics of roads, how roads help people in their everyday lives, how roads are made, and how we stay safe on the roads. And Mr. Gallo from our local DPW came to our school to teach the classes about road safety, and then they brought us out into the parking lot, and we got to see firsthand how potholes are fixed. And I think the favorite part for the students was actually getting to see up close the trucks and getting a little tour of the trucks and the equipment. And the final study that we are going to finish the year off with is our study on insects. We are discussing the characteristics of insects, where do insects live, what insects we can find in our community, how insects help the earth, and who works with insects. We had an informative visit from Jumanta Hyatt. She's a master student entomologist from Rutgers University. She gave a great presentation on a variety of insects and captured the students' attention through quiz games and the many examples of insects that she could share with the classes. And they really liked the bugs. A little too much.
3 and 4-year-olds sit for an hour.
Yeah, they were very fascinated by all the different types of bugs. And we also had, just last week, yep, that's her too. We had a visit from local beekeepers, Karen and Barbara, and they did an amazing job sharing with the classes what bees do, how they harvest honey, and answering all the questions from our curious students. The children were able to see the protection gear, as you can see that they're wearing in this picture, and they got to touch and smell the honeycombs. So again, thanks to a great team of staff and skilled volunteers who were able to bring to life the many units we've studied this year. The visits and presentations made everything we taught more meaningful for the students and relatable to their real-world experiences.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. And Mrs. Lovett, thank you for all of your connections and for creating these opportunities for our students. But you know what it is, I'll say to all three of you, what's so great is hearing about how the kids are exploring the world around them
It's amazing.
and doing it in an authentic way and combining that with the curriculum. It's great.
They had a good time this year, I think.
Can we ask some questions, Mr. Alexis? I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I'll ask a question. So this creative curriculum, was this the first year that we used this creative curriculum in preschool, or?
So this was the first year that we used the updated gold version of it. We've had it for years in the past, but we used to, when the classes were 3 and 4, 3-year-olds used it more, more often than not, and 4-year-olds used a combination of that with foundations, with more pre-kindergarten skills. But this was the first year that we used it with validity, the updated program,
Okay.
including the assessments, the progress reports that were not used in the past.
Okay.
So you didn't have the pre-kindergarten skills, or yes? You had
We intertwined that with centers, so it wasn't formally taught like as a whole group, but we did have foundation centers. Yes.
How many in the preschool?
I have 17 in my class, and I think
She has 18.
I think she just got a new one.
17 and 18.
So next year, because it's a 2-year cycle now with the kids, will there be like a different set of, it'll be rotational between every 2 years, you'll have different sections? Or
Creative curriculum has over 20 units, so each year you can pick which units you want to focus on. So because we did these units this year, probably next year they'll pick different units to study.
so cool. It's nice to see you guys. I mean,
Yes.
I've seen you since COVID.
I know, yes.
I mean, this is love it. I enjoyed your singing throughout COVID. And
Yes.
I have wonderful videos of the kids, and it's really nice to see you. You guys do a wonderful job.
Together in COVID too.
Yes, we were.
I was just gonna say something. My son is in the program. All 3 of my children have gone through this program, and I think even Marcellus. I think it was creative went back then
We were
too.
just starting it with
Yeah.
ourselves.
So this is a wonderful curriculum, and the teachers and the paras, all you guys are just awesome. So I see everything that comes home to me, and the cute little beekeeper with the little netting over the craft.
That was my art too.
Yeah, it's just so, it's awesome. I love it. My kids love it.
Thank you.
Can I take a picture of you guys together just to put it?
Sure.
Come on. This is very, I mean. Okay, Thank you. Give it to the paper.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so
much.
much.
Very much.
Really great.
Okay. So we are going to communications. I do not have any.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Board committee and liaison reports. We'll start with Karen.
Okay, Morris County Ed Services, the last time we met was the last update that got from them. I have a meeting coming this Wednesday. Now, excuse me, for finance, yeah, okay, what we had at the last meeting was a presentation from Brown and Brown. Well, I should say, not only a presentation, not formal presentation, it's more like a big discussion about a little of the history of the health plans in our district and a rundown on, what's available to us and what's not available to us. Because we have a universe of less than 100, that's very restrictive in terms of the plans that would be open to us to utilize. Part of that reason is obviously because of the size, but the other part is for under 150, what they call claim experience is not captured, and without that, no other company, other companies do not want you. So, be that as it may, based upon what increases came this year, with the cooperative that we are working with, we came in, I think, second to lowest, with only a 6.5% increase, whereas others in the cooperative, for whatever reason, came up with 9 and so on. Robin is going to work with Brown and Brown to look at the alternatives and, still look at alternatives and see what we can do. But right now, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember it correctly, they were kind of leaning towards staying status quo right now, but who knows? As of the meeting last Wednesday, there were 98 hits on the website for the presentation of the budget, no questions or comments. Okay, for RFPs and bids, excuse me, Katie will go into more about the Gillette fire alarm bid. We had a competitive contract that came in for aftercare. There were 4 respondents. The bids were due on May 2nd. Robin is putting together a team of, with administrator and staff to review the bids. Our present, I'll call it carrier or whatever, came in, and as well, and Work Connection, you said, came in too?
No.
No, they didn't? All right. So then 3 new ones. There's also professional services RFP that went out, and this is not because of any dissatisfaction with any of the services, either the lawyers or the accountants or whatever. It's just something that by law has to be done every 3 years. The national, for the school lunch program, there seems to be a very large volume of training required by the Department of Agriculture, and Robin and Dom have already started to undertake, that training. Excuse me. They visited Warren to see how their operation goes. They visited at 2 schools, so talking about staffing, equipment, how it's operated, getting alternatives. I think you've already talked to 1 or 2 of the, I'll call them suppliers, and there are a lot of variations on how we could put this into effect. So that we have to rely on Robin and her team to do the mechanics of the study and come back to us on that. The ROD grant has a certain status. Again, Katie will go into that in more detail. We had on agenda items for approval, you're going to see something about our integrated pest management. Frank is up on everything. There's a third party that we utilize to monitor the contracts for custodian, maintenance, grounds, and management services, and we want to, maintain that. Enrollment with Morris County Ed Services Commission. Any district can sign up for any commission. We even have to sign up for it or enter a contract. RNL Data Centers, which does our payroll processing, and CDK systems for our accounting and license and support. And there was a response to 2 questions, one that came in from Kim regarding the ratings for the township. They are a AA, so they went from, they have a positive outlook, like we do. And Tom had asked a question regarding when we had to approve going over the 44,000 limit, and the amount of money was $444.50. However, there'll be one coming up for a couple of $1,000s, and it deals mostly with Chromebooks. So that's coming up. With respect to governance, we are working on the mission and vision. Ann and myself, I guess, took a sentence out of the present thing that's online. The committee did some work, and the long and short of it is there were 2 or 3 alternatives to what I would call a tagline that George is bringing or has brought to the administrative team to get their feedback on it. The board planning calendar, I haven't checked. Is it up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're just double checking a few things.
Okay, like a revised format, following, I'll call it the Livingston model. And it'll identify, regular operations, and then if there's presentations or executive sessions, that'll also be identified. Kim, George, and I are gonna hit the stage again, putting in a proposal to present at the conference. Charlene said we should put the proposal in through her, and which I will do as soon as we can all agree on what we're doing. Something came up about attendance at committee meetings. Not that there's poor attendance, but, excuse me, a lot of the meetings seem to be happening during the day, and just wanted to make sure that everybody, because obviously a lot of people work, that, it really is working to have have the time during, quote unquote, the work day. So that's the only thing, just as long as all the committees can agree and it's working effectively, that's fine. And for the agenda, for the retreat in July, there will be homework, so to speak, put out. We're gonna give information about the strategic plan. Again, what the previous goals were. We're gonna ask you to think about what should be on our plate for next year, for the coming year, and so on. And that it's coming up, the board and the CSA and the board evaluation, self-evaluation, and those are coming up. And that's it.
Any questions for Karen?
I have
Okay,
one.
Tom?
Karen, going through the budget process, I had asked if we had looked at a new broker and a new insurance plan. The answer came back that Brown & Brown said our insurance plan is good. Have we looked to put out an RFP on Brown & Brown to see if their prices are still good?
No, not that I'm aware of,
Do you know
no.
the last time that was? 5 years?
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know when.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? That's part of the professional services RFP that's currently out.
Okay.
So we should be getting that back. I believe the date is May 19th. Don't hold me to that.
Right.
But it's coming back in the next couple of weeks, and it is for all professional services.
Okay, great. Okay,
So-
that's not what the response is. Thank you.
So
Get it.
we may get a response or we may not. So, because we,
Oh, Brown & Brown is used all throughout New Jersey, and I'm not really worried about them, but it's always good to just check the price once in a while.
okay. That's it.
Okay, Crystal?
Nothing for me this month, Kim.
Okay, Danielle?
Okay, so I'll start with community relations, just because it's quick. We did meet on April 15th, and it was just a meeting real quick before the Sterling Street Fair. Everything went well. I think we were received by the public really, well, and everything went smoothly despite it being freezing cold. But it was nice and it was fun to get involved. And then our next meeting is going to be on May 14th at 12 o'clock via Zoom. And And then I'll go to the PTO. So May is a very busy month. PTO is hosting a staff appreciation luncheons to honor all the dedicated and hardworking staff for all they do for the school community all year long. Millington is tomorrow. Central is Wednesday, and Gillette is Thursday. Let me see. At Millington this coming month, second grade, there's Environmental Day, including a guest band, Bash the Trash, whose concert is funded through a grant provided through the Long Hill Township DPW. There's going to be a third grade International Day as well, and a fifth grade Colonial Day, and school assemblies for all grades by Kits Interactive Theater. At Central School, seventh grade, there's going to be Victorian Day. Eighth grade will be Shakespeare Theater Language Arts Residency, and sixth grade Writers Workshop Language Arts Residency, and sixth grade Medieval Day. It looks like the next PTO general meeting will be on Wednesday, May 29th at 7 p.m. in the Millington Media Center. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Danielle? No? Okay. Erin?
On April 23rd, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to attend a meeting at Watchung Hills Regional High School. And I have a statement from the committee that I'll read that should hopefully answer questions and explain. So with full funding from the state of New Jersey, a highly experienced Rowan University team led by former Warren Township Board of Education member Kathleen Halua will be conducting a shared service regionalization study covering the Watchung Hills Regional, Watchung Borough, Warren Township, Long Hill Township, and Greenbrook Township school districts. The Watchung Hills Regional and Watchung Borough school districts applied for the $135,000 grant under the state's School Regionalization Efficiency Program, which funds the full cost of studies with no cost to school districts or property taxpayers. The study will be conducted over the next year with input from an advisory committee that includes representation from all 5 school boards, Watchung Hills Regional, Watchung, Warren Township, Long Hill, and Greenbrook, along with school administrators and municipal officials. The study will analyze educational programs for students from preschool through high school within the 5 districts, including curriculum coordination, special education program, and transportation costs, provide a demographic analysis of future enrollment for the 5 districts, forecast state aid based on those enrollment projections, and evaluate future budget challenges. Based on this analysis, the study will provide recommendations for the educational enhancements and potential cost savings through various options, ranging from the expansion of shared services in specific areas to full pre-K-12 regionalization. The Rowan School Regionalization Institution team includes I apologize, I believe I'm mispronouncing all these names, but a Warren resident who has previously served as a senior manager of field services for the New Jersey School Board Association, former state education commissioner Lucille Devey, G. Kennedy Green, former president of the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, Mark Magar, a principal author of the 2022 school regionalization legislation, and a school finance consultant, Brian Felkowski. There will be ongoing opportunities for township members' valuable community involvement throughout the study process, beginning with an informational Zoom session on Monday, May 20th at 7 p.m. A meeting recording will be posted on district websites following the session. Registration information will be forthcoming. So that was the report for the April 23rd meeting. And then if I switch a moment here, we also had a student achievement update. So we had a meeting for student achievement on April 17th. Myself, Kim Case, Katie McLennan, Crystal Marr, and Dr. Alexis, Mr. George Alexis was in attendance. We discussed the curriculum writing projects that are being planned for the summer, including an enhancement to the earth science curriculum in grades K through 8, and also curriculum writing for grades K-5 ELA. That's looking just to fine-tune some elements of the curriculum that have been recently placed last year. Grades 7 through 8 ELA teachers will be adjusting curriculum to align with the high school curriculum and avoid overlap of materials and stories used. The district will be transitioning to a new program to present the curriculum. So we're currently using Rubicon Atlas to share our curriculum documents, but we're going to be moving to a Google Drive for that. There's beginning discussions at some programs at Central, including the cycle courses. We had an update on the Summer Institute, just to touch base with the attendance and the enrollment numbers and the invitations. We had a brief conversation revisiting the parent-teacher conferences from this year to check in. For those of you who might remember, this has just been something that has changed a few times over the last few years. So having returned to a certain setup in November just to check in with the administration on their opinion on moving forward with the conferences. We had a check-in with the iReady communications with parents, and the way that the district is just keeping that information, at the parents so that they understand the program and how they can access it for their students. We had an update about the shared services agreement for the special education summer program with ESY with Watchung Borough School District. And then there was also some conversation about parent communication in grade 5 and the alignment possibly with the way we communicate between grades 6 through 8. So grade 5 is a little bit of an outlier because it is in the elementary schools, but in some ways it's more aligned with those secondary classes in the middle school. So it's just that conversation. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, May 14th.
Any questions for Ann? I have a question.
The 5th grade used to be at Central.
Oh, I never knew that, Karen.
Yeah, my son was the first one in the class where it went to Millington.
Wow.
Yeah.
My question is on the feasibility study. When they give that information, like, is there a home for information about it on the Watchung Hills page, or is there some place? So how does that information get out to people? Our valuable input. How will we know that we can give it?
It is posted, I believe, on everyone's website. It's the same message. So I believe the town council has posted the message. Have we posted the? Oh, no. Then we'll just touch base with them. They are linking, and they were. That was a question at the meeting. So the focus and the goal of the committee, and I don't want to talk too much about it for this reason. They want consistent communication with all school districts and all townships, and so that's why we had the message that we were reading. So we'll ask and get back to you on where, but it's definitely posted on the Watchung Hills website at the moment. I'm fairly confident it's posted on the Long Hill Township website.
What is posted?
The message that I just read, that information.
George just said no, it's
No,
not.
on the Long Hill Township. Long Hill Township is involved as well.
Got it.
Right,
Okay,
so we
you're
can check
saying-
base to make sure
we
that
can put
we're.
it on our website.
Yeah, well, we'll reach out and
Yeah.
check. You.
Okay,
make sure
okay,
there's
you're saying though there
consistency
might
with
be, I mean, I think,
I
It's-
don't know how they're going to publicize at this moment, but I know that they're consistently communicating with all stakeholders in there so that we will get the information at the same time. But at the moment we have that meeting, I can go back to it.
well, I guess my thought would be that we wouldn't post their message. We would post a link to their
Yes.
website because that should be the place where they're updating
So
things. Otherwise,
they're-
we're gonna be responsible for updating things.
No, they're managing that. So
Okay.
George will just do a check-in to make sure that we're
I'll
with
look and
it.
see.
Yeah, but right now, the next update will be, there will be an update coming. I haven't gotten it yet. But the meeting is Monday, May 20th at 7 p.m. and that's for community involvement in the process.
That's a virtual meeting.
A virtual meeting, an informational Zoom session. So it literally says, I can read it here, a meeting recording will be posted on district websites following the session. But we will check in with them about that. And I'm sure more information will be forthcoming. This was a first meeting to just kind of get
Well,
along.
if you give feedback, my feedback would be that they start a web page. I mean, I'm looking for it, but if they have one, then I'll find it. Okay, sorry. Tom?
Thank you. On May 2nd at 12 o'clock, the Technology Committee meeting met via Google Meet. The attendees were George Alexis, myself, Mr. Justin Foster, Ms. Kim Case, and Mr. Jack Hartnett. In the meeting minutes, which will be coming out shortly, Jack has informed those in attendance of the following, that we're currently going through annual technology recycling. The IT department has been trimming the number of PCs due to achieving a 1-to-1 Chromebook ratio. Inventory is to be submitted to the Board of Ed agenda in June. Items include desktop monitors, keyboards, mice, etc., etc. We're also reviewing options for Chromebook buyback programs. Chromebook Plus is something that Jack's working on, and it uses computing hardware, actual computing hardware, and is cloud managed while representing a lower cost for purchase. A new line of Chromebooks that they're more powerful internal hardware than current. IT will be deploying these devices to a small group of staff to gather feedback, and we'll see how that works out. EdTech management platform for the upcoming school year. It tracks all of the EdTech apps and tools used in the district, provides tools to identify apps with data privacy concerns. I won't read you the words, the letters here. Especially useful as the district has limited manpower. It provides the district with the data needed to make data-driven decisions when purchasing EdTech applications, so that's excellent. IT infrastructure updates. A brand-new battery backup is installed in Millington's primary data room, and district updates are now wrapping up as for infrastructure. Millington's Steam iPad refresh. 13 devices were retired and replaced with new iPads and cases. 25 new 9th generation iPads have been obtained, 13 via a grant from LHEF, and the remainder from district funds. All devices are, I believe that's correct, is that right, Jack? Close enough? Thank you, sir. All devices are up to date with current generation hardware. Website project update. The website project has started with a vendor and a theme being selected. Currently, the website template is being built by Final Site. Final Site will standardize policy issues and crowd sharing while allowing for the cancellation of unused contracts. So if there's widgets out there that we're not using, why are we paying for them? Gone. And currently still on track to launch late summer of 2024. I believe you said August. September, still summer. So. Thank you, sir. Millington Wi-Fi service. It was brought to my attention by Ms. Daly that people have complained that there's poor Wi-Fi service in Millington, and IT has determined that there's currently not a lack of Wi-Fi service as there's been no tickets entered regarding any issues. It may be possible that users have had access problems with cellular service, which the district does not have the ability to enhance. And items for the good of the order, we were working on committee goals, which are not final. They will be in the agenda, but I won't read them into the record tonight. And that's it from me. Any questions?
Okay, no questions? Okay, Justin?
Nothing to report.
All righty, Melissa?
Policy Committee met on April 9th, and we met through Zoom. We went over another group of policies that you'll see on tonight's agenda. Some are also for second reading. Our next meeting is give me a second, on May 14th. It's going to be 8 p.m. and we're going to be reviewing a whole nother set of policies. And then the whole board should be receiving the agenda probably tonight for our meeting next week. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Melissa? All right, Katie?
Okay, the Buildings and Grounds Committee met April 23rd at 2 p.m. on Google Meet. Myself, Mr. Alexis, Karen Nyquist, Tom Groskopf, and Robin Bomer, and Frank Murgatroyd, and Adele Valentine attended. I'm going to have to give a high level because my notes were left in my office, so please forgive me. On this meeting, we went over the spring break projects that were done. They did a lot of extra cleaning at all the buildings. They also painted, I think it was at Millington, they painted the doorways.
Mhm.
So they took advantage of the time that they had, and they repainted all the doorways in there and cleaned everything up. Was it just Millington, or was it also?
I think there was some work done at Gillette, too.
Yes, and they also, there was a water infiltration through the nurse's office masonry wall that was addressed. Millington School They're doing landscaping, and one of the things that they are looking into is instead of putting mulch down, they're looking into putting stone down to reduce the amount of maintenance over time. So that's something that's going to happen soon. And they're currently talking to different landscape companies and addressing that. They addressed the heating and cooling in room 10 and the copier room. And also there was 20 unit of ventilators that were replaced. Is that accurate? No? Or identified?
Identified.
Identified, excuse me, for the address. And also at Millington, they also replaced 2 windows.
Yes.
They replaced 2 windows that were
Broken,
offline,
yeah.
that were broken.
Mhm.
And then finally, at Central, there was a replacement of the fire alarm punch list, so the fire alarm at Central is now completed. And as a resident around there, I can say there's been a significant drop in the false alarms that have been going out and waking us up and going off I've lived there for 10 years, and there's definitely a dramatic difference since that's been done. So I can appreciate that on both as a district and also as a resident, so thank you. Then let's see, also the renovation of the staff laboratories has finally been completed, so the punch list and the final inspections are all done. There was a holdup with the locks, and that has now been addressed, so that's great news. In terms of maintenance and operations, School Dude has been fully implemented, and there has been an increase in usage, and it's been very effective having staff, trained and are using it more, and it's been going really well. The preventative maintenance on the HVAC has been completed. There's been some tree work. Millington, they had safety inspections. There's also 2 trees where I think we talked about it last meeting, Halls and Florist in Rose Valley Nursery donated 2 trees that are at Gillette, and they've been installed and they look beautiful. Also, there's an ongoing issue with roof leaks district-wide, and they're kind of addressing that in our budget in terms of looking at, they're actually contacting the roofing company to kind of get the time of when everything was installed so they can slowly but surely do the replacements in the appropriate amount of time and also address the leaks, because it's just an ongoing thing. But obviously they're not leaving the leaks to go, but it's also preventative maintenance as well. Let's see what else. The sale of the dump truck is still ongoing. Integrated pest management, there's been the routine service calls and inspections have been completed. There is noted that there's been rising calls for ants and wasps, but those have been addressed, and so that should be less of an issue going forward. For our capital improvement projects, the JCP&L is going to be working with us to do the direct install HVAC, and that should be a cost-saving measure because it's going to be ongoing as opposed to all at once. Robin could go further into that if necessary. And then we did our preliminary capital improvements plan. The fire alarm, as Karen mentioned, the bids were collected for the Gillette School fire alarms, and we the winning bid was actually the person that installed, the company that installed both at Millington and Central, which is great because there'll be continuity. We've had a really positive experience with them at the other 2 schools, and also they came in very slightly under budget, so probably when it's all said and done, it'll probably come at budget. But that's always exciting when things, we planned
Stars aligned.
appropriately for that, because everything seems to be getting more expensive, and this kind of came in online. And then I'm going to defer to you with the ROD grants, but also the Millington School Library renovation. I mentioned it before. One thing that they're doing is they got feedback from the staff when they were planning the purchases of the furniture and the furnishings that are going in the building, which is great because the teachers really, they're the ones, they're our users, so they know what the kids need. So they're trying to make it a more flexible space. There's going to be the movable tables. There's going to be flexible seating, and what's really exciting is they're putting in a Lego wall, so the kids can kind of be inspired to make messages and do all different things on the wall. So that's really fun. And then also they're doing room 34 at Central. And in the past was used by our technology department. It's actually kind of a double room. And it's going to be used for meetings. It's a flexible space. They can have presentations in there. And again, there'll be flexible, movable furniture so they can use it for a variety of needs and what's necessary. And that is all I have.
Okay.
And actually, I lied, because now the Long Hill Ed Foundation, when it comes to force, we're no longer having the second session this year just because of timing, where the breaks were. We couldn't have the additional session. However, a bit of news, after about 10 years or so with our district, Jessica Walsh, our force coordinator, is moving on. We're gonna miss her terribly because she's amazing and she has done so much for us. And I mean, as someone who's been working with her for the last 3 or 4 years, she's gonna be sorely missed. But we're excited. A Long Hill mom, Carolyn Bustamante, has agreed to be our force coordinator. So she will be rolling out the classes next year. I'll be working with her, and so we'll have a new contact email, and she'll be coordinating all the classes for next year. So hopefully that will go smoothly. I have every confidence in Carolyn. She's a real go-getter, so that should go really well. The next bit of news is we have the color run, which is on May 17th. It's a Friday. I believe it starts at 5:45. Our pre-sale ends tomorrow, so you can go on the Long Hill Ed Foundation website and purchase your tickets today and tomorrow. Otherwise, you can pay at the day of, and it's $25 at the door. It's $20 if you buy online up until tomorrow. One thing, we've added a DJ, so there'll be a DJ there to kind of introduce everyone and also play music and, you know, make it a more enjoyable atmosphere. We also have 3 food trucks coming. We have Kona Ice, we have a Mexican food truck, and also a barbecue truck. So that should be really enjoyable, and you know, come out with your family, get messy. You know, the parents don't have to run unless they want to. There's a small run for the toddlers, which is much shorter, and then there's a full just lap of the grounds at Millington, and that's where we get to throw powdered dye on the kids. It's all washable, allegedly, and but it's safe. And for the children that buy ahead, we'll have glasses so they can wear sunglasses while they run in case anyone's concerned about their eyes. But it is perfectly safe. If you want to send them in with goggles, by all means. But it should be a really fun time, and it helps our Ed Foundation buy things for the district. And also, we have the first day school supplies fundraiser as well, and that you can go online. There's plenty of emails been going out. I think there's been stuff sent home. It's from grades pre-K through 5th. There's too many classes in the middle school, and it was just easier to do pre-K through 5. You can purchase online, and it's open until July 1st. And as someone with 3 boys, I can tell you it made my life so much easier last year, and I highly recommend it. So that is all. Thank you so much.
Katie, one point.
Yes?
I think in Buildings and Grounds, we spoke about adding a name plaque to the 2 trees that were donated.
Yes. So I don't know if that's
I think Frank was going to look into
Under
price and see if
consideration.
that was
That's why I didn't
a
mention it, but
possibility, yeah.
that's something that.
But the one thing I think you, I don't know if I heard you mention the new floor in the Gillette
the new floor,
Media
the-
Center, the new VCT floor.
Yes. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I left my form.
That was pretty good without notes. That was pretty thorough.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Katie? Okay, I will mention, so we had a personnel committee meeting on April 18th. Very high-level topics. Staff, we discussed summative evaluations, renewal lists, open positions, and potential changes for next year. Also, central office non-affiliated contracts, leaves of absence, and the results of that, substitutes, and our next meeting is April 15th at noon, because we meet quarterly. Also, Watchung Hills does have a feasibility study website. So if you want to go to it, if you want to just search like Watchung Hills and feasibility, I'm sure it'll come up. It's under the board page. And it does already have the link to register for the May 20th meeting if you want to do that. So just to recap. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay. We're moving fast through the year. We're in early May, and this is the time of year which is really a nice time for our staff. Danielle mentioned the PTO sponsoring the staff luncheons, and we really appreciate that. But it's National Nurses Week this week. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. Tomorrow is Teacher Appreciation Day. And so on behalf of the board, I just want to acknowledge and praise our staff. We're very thankful for their dedication, for their talent, and for their caring approach to everything they do, putting students at the center of all their efforts. The NJSLA is moving along at Central. Tomorrow is the last day. It's the second day of science testing. Then we move on to makeups, but Millington begins testing on May 9th, and that will go through the 20th. We have the shared services agreement with Watchung for the extended school year program, which was mentioned during a committee report. That is on the agenda. Also, the AEDs that I mentioned last time have been installed at each school's field, and thanks again to the Long Hill Baseball Softball Association for splitting the cost with us. It's very generous. We did have an issue here in town today, which caused a little bit of a disruption at Millington School. There was apparently a bad car accident on Long Hill Road up near Skyline, and it knocked out some of the power lines. And the last I heard this evening was that the police expected the power to be back on at about 10 or 10:30 tonight. Frank Murgatroyd and his assistant are going to be looking into that and make sure everything is ready to go first thing in the morning, and we'll report any sort of problems that may have occurred at the school when we have a better idea. But for the most part, everything went fine. The lost power triggered the emergency generator. The lights were going. It affected some of the technology connectivity, but everyone was safe, and we moved through dismissal safely and efficiently. Okay, so now we also have something special on the agenda, and that's what I call the puppy pilot at Millington. So we have this partnership, sort of informal partnership with the Seeing Eye Association from Morristown. They recently did an assembly, and I think they do this frequently each year or every other year. And we have a teacher who's fostering a puppy, and we are putting together a pilot program where we're going to allow the teacher to bring Mr. Simo to bring in the puppy and keep it at school. We think it'll be great for the students and the staff. We saw pictures of the preschoolers and how much they enjoyed having a therapy dog visit. This is not a therapy dog. It's really a puppy in training to be a guide dog, and they need to be exposed to public places while they're young. So we're also providing a service to help the dog, raise the dog. So I think that covers everything I wanted to mention. Before, I just want to repeat some of the highlights of the budget. Now, Robin's going to go through the presentation for us in a few moments. But we're very pleased with the budget. As I said, back in March when we presented the tentative budget, it's aligned with our district and board goals in the district strategic plan. We place an emphasis on instructional needs of our students and the professional development of our faculty. We've added a STEAM teacher at the middle school. We're excited about that, and made a significant investment in instructional resources, including making sure we could maintain iReady, and an instructional consultant that we're exploring to assist us with the MTSS intervention process. The budget also makes a significant investment in technology, allowing us to move much closer to the full one-to-one implementation district-wide. We have as Jack reported last month, we do have the one-to-one Chromebook initiative fully implemented in grades 2 through 8. We added the second grade this year, and we're now turning our attention to the iPads for our K-1 students, which will be a multi-year process, but we will have a full implementation of one-to-one. And the iPads are clearly better from an instructional perspective for our youngest learners. We also found a way to keep the Summer Institute in place despite the expiration of the ARP ESSER funds. And we as Katie mentioned, we have funds reserved to transform the media center at Millington, again, to make it a place that's attractive to students, that is a place of exploration and inquiry, a place where it's flexible in terms of seating and opportunities. So we're excited about that. We have our eye on the Central Media Center for next year, but you'll hear ongoing updates about that in the coming months. We also have the new website platform to enhance communications, and we pursued the shared service opportunities. So I want to thank Robin and the business office staff, our administrative leadership team, the finance committee, and the entire board for helping us create and support this budget that is very instructionally focused and strategically aligned and fiscally responsible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Bomer.
Thank you. Before we go into the budget, I want to just mention a couple other things on the agenda in the finance section. The first is we are getting a donation of one ping pong table from Nancy and John Hanrahan here in Long Hill, and I just want to thank them for their donation. It's very generous, and I know Central's going to enjoy it. I also want to mention that we have 3 resolutions on the agenda for our architects, Perret Samjian, to start work on our ROD grants. And what they're doing is preparing the necessary plans and paperwork to submit to the Department of Education. I double-checked this with the state. Even though the grants have been filed with the state, we don't actually have a contract with them yet, but the state said it's fine to start this work. We just can't award anything until we actually get the contract. So we are doing that.
Before we start, I forgot to mention that the bills, we approved the bills at the finance meeting.
Oh, one more thing. Number 19, that I am vigilant about our outstanding checklist. I don't know if you recognize that or not, but I am. We have one check in payroll that has not been cashed. It's over 10 months old. We've tried to contact the person about it, and it's not going through. So we are mentioning it as stale. We're going to take it off our outstanding list. That is the only check that is outstanding for the district, which is really a nice thing. So tonight I'm going to be presenting an overview of the Long Hill Township 2024-25 final school budget. At our March meeting, I presented the tentative budget to the board for their approval and submitted it to Morris County Superintendent for her review and approval. It was advertised to the public on April 25th, and tonight the board will vote on the adoption of the final budget. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank our board members, and a special thank you to those who sit on the Finance Committee, as they are an integral part of the budget process. Budget planning starts in early November with the need to project what will occur as of June 30th, 2025. We use our very best efforts to anticipate at that point in time where the district will finish in 20 months. This year, we held budget meetings with our admin team and supplied them with budget worksheets and historical budget data from which they provided us with their proposed budgets. Additional information was then added and refined by myself, Mr. Borgo, Mr. Alexis, and the Finance Committee. In addition, outside sources such as our insurance advisors, auditor, and state sources were consulted to arrive at the budget that you're going to be viewing tonight. This slide shows the audited, budgeted per pupil amounts of neighboring districts as well as those in Morris County with 751 or more enrollment. We currently have about 830 enrolled. Long Hill is nicely positioned within the grouping, neither over or underspending districts of similar size in our area. The total school budget for 24-25 is $22,938,909, which includes the 3 capital projects that Dr. Alexis and Katie mentioned. This slide provides a detailed representation of the costs as they are submitted in the NJ Department of Education in the budget software system. I'd like to take a moment to highlight a few areas that we haven't presented in other presentations. If you look at the figure for out-of-district tuition, this includes public and private special education out-of-district tuition as offset by anticipated IDEA funding. This year, out-of-district tuition is presently calculated at $1,073,000, from which we are required to subtract the anticipated IDEA funds of $191,000. If you look at transportation services in the second column of $1,178,000, this includes aid in lieu, regular education transportation, and special education transportation. Employee benefits, right under it, 3.8, includes the board share of pension plans, Social Security and Medicare, unemployment insurance, group and long-term disability, and our medical premiums and dental premiums, as well as tuition reimbursements and cash incentives such as benefits waivers and sick payout. Lastly, if you look at the last number of debt repayment, the district issued bonds in 2012 and 2014. The 2012 bonds were retired this year. The 2014 bonds were refunded through the issuance of 2021 refunding bonds, and these bonds are being repaid with payments of interest and principal that are made each July and January. So this pie chart is important as it shows a visual representation of expenditures in the budget. You'll note that 88% of the district's expenditures are allocated to fixed and contractual costs encompassing salaries, benefits, maintenance and operations, transportation, special education tuition, and debt service. So once we get done with looking at expenditures, the next thing is that we have to look at revenues to figure out how to fund those expenditures. In every budget, revenues must equal expenditures. So let's look at revenues in the following chart. The source of revenue in any school district, the local tax levy, is the primary source of funding, representing 81% of our operating budget. This year's state aid, which is represented in light blue, comprises 6.2% of our revenues. The governor awarded us an extra $155,322 in state aid over last year. The next highest source of revenues is our own budgeted fund balance. This fund balance is a number that is plugged into the 24-25 budget, and it's derived from excess surplus that was generated in 22-23. This means that some combination of cost savings or unexpected additional revenue occurred in 22-23. While we always hope to have finished the year with excess surplus, it's not reasonable to believe that we can generate this amount of money, and therefore we don't want to become reliant upon fund balance to pay our expenditures. We also have anticipated federal aid of $272,000, which includes our titled and IDEA money. And these are used to fund basic programs supporting the development of teachers and principals, multi-language learners, and special education tuition and services. The district will be funding 3 capital projects, the funds for which will be taken out of our capital reserve account and will have no impact on our tax levy. The capital reserve account is where money is set aside specifically to support the district's long-range facility plan. Katie already outlined, as did Mr. Alexis, the project, so I'm not going to go into those. So where does that put us financially? The district is not utilizing any adjustments or waivers in this budget. The district has $107,000 in bank cap from prior years that's not being utilized as well. The 2% tax increase over the 23-24 budget is approximately $362,000. The tax levy is derived by dividing the total tax levy of $19,312,573 by the assessed valuations which are provided by Long Hill Township. This amount is then multiplied by the average assessed home value that is also provided by the township. For the average home having an assessed value of $596,357, you'll see that in column 2, that 4 from the bottom. This will equate to an additional $220.12 per year. It's important to note that the average assessed valuation of a home in Long Hill increased from 2324. So if you go across that 4 from the bottom line, you see that the average home in 2324 was $560,000. It's now $596,000. You also see on this slide that the debt service tax in the last column, the $53.20, that's gone down because we've retired some of our debt. The total tax levy increased from 24-25 by approximately $362,000. The average home having an assessed value of $596,357 will equate to an additional $212.12 for the year, or $18.34 a month. This graph shows you a historical look at the tax levy over the past 15 years. You'll notice that the last 4 years, the tax levy has consistently been at 2%. So that's been the goal. We want to try to hold you right around 2%. We've done it again this year. And if we can stay within that green bar, we think we really hit our goal. Okay, and if there are any questions from the board, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Can I just recognize you so we go in order? Melissa, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, so when you look at the fact that we have to stabilize ourselves at the 2%, that's actually below the increase in inflation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So although it looks like we're maintaining that 2%, we're constantly, as a finance committee, I could say this, we're working every year to make up for all the inflation costs and the increase in
Absolutely.
expenses. So,
Increase in salaries, increase in
Increase in salaries.
benefits, increase
So,
in
yeah.
transportation.
because when you think about it, the 2% is not as much as what inflation is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it requires us to cut every year or find additional revenue sources, which you've done, which has been excellent, to stay at that 2%.
Right.
So you've done an excellent job. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
You and
you.
your team.
Thank you. Yeah, it is, just want to say to the business office, we have an excellent team. This is one strong district as far as what we're doing in the business office. You have a lot to be proud of. You've done very well in what you've looked at and who you've hired and just the goals that you've put in front of people. And I have to say, the way we were all applauding inside about gold stars, that's how the business office looks at things too. I mean, we see gold star and we want it.
Okay. Other questions?
I always like to point out that you said that we get 1% of our federal funding, which is supposed to address like many different things, and one of the things that's included in that federal funding is special education tuition, and that 1% of our budget, that's where we get our revenue from. It's 1% of our budget, but almost 4% of our budget alone goes to tuitions for sending students out of district, and that's if nothing changes next year. And if someone comes in the district, I want to preface this: it's their right. It's part of being a citizen who pays taxes in this community, and we support that. But it is a very large portion of our budget, and to see that we only get 1% of our budget in benefit from that, and it's 4%. It is I think it's 880,000. I think I saw on the thing, and that always grows, and it's always very important to see that when people see where their money is going, that is an expense that is constantly increasing, and as more and more kids are coming into the district with needs, it's something to be mindful of, that we're always like one kid away from $180,000, right? I mean, like the tuitions are crazy.
In addition to the tuition, transportation
Yeah.
is also, and it goes up every year. It's not going up 2%.
Yeah.
It goes up more than that. The cost of an aide, the cost of the bus, the cost of the school goes up more than 2%.
The transportation cost is in the transportation line. It's not in the special ed line. So that 880,000, you gotta, add on the transportation and the aids and all.
Now, I didn't mention here, we do also get X-aid, extraordinary aid. It is not budgeted. You typically do not budget X-aid because it's a variable. You don't know what you're going to get. So you do get, so you do get a little bit back on that. And that's part of the reason that we do sometimes get fund balance is because the X-aid comes in, and we can do that.
Okay, Tom, did you?
Yes, please. Can you kindly explain to us how you get the $19,000 per child, per capita cost for the child? Because if you take the raw numbers, the $23 million budget divided by the number of
Are
students
you
you're
talking
coming
about
in.
the first slide where we showed by district? That one, the cost per child?
Well, you showed the different districts, right, and you had
Yes,
19,000.
okay. So that is calculated by the state. You can find all those figures in the New Jersey Taxpayers Guide if you go to the DOE website under Finance. And they calculate all those. That's why I believe the numbers I have up there are 21, 22, or 22, 23, because that's where they're up to. They don't have the most recent. We are within, I'm sure, within the range for the most recent, but the state calculates that, and that is off audited figures.
So what numbers
So-
would you use now to figure a per child cost?
That I would not do that myself. I would use the state numbers to do that. We can use the budgeted numbers. There's a whole bunch of numbers that go into that as to what they do. They add up part of your electricity and all
Yeah,
that.
they don't
to go
just,
in.
it's not just expenses divided by pupil.
No.
It's a much more intricate formula.
They call it a load rate, and the load takes all the overhead. And you add that to what you might call an hourly work rate. So it would be insurance costs, like they said, electricity, gas, maintenance, all of that. That gets loaded on, so that's what's included.
So that comes out of the number then?
What?
That comes out of the number to get a per child rate of 19.
No, that's how you get to
That's
that number.
added into
You-
it, yeah.
It's considered a
You're adding more to our budget and you get a lower number?
No, not to get a lower number. It's derived from all those numbers, and they separate. I can show you, come into my office, I will show you.
I'm actually doing it I'm asking for the
Yeah,
public.
in the,
Well, I think she answered it, though. She said you need to go to the state website, and it gives you the number. That's the answer. Any other questions?
Just a statement. Robin and Mr. Alexis will be presenting the budget at the Township Committee meeting, I believe on June 12th. Okay. And I plan on being there. And it might be really nice if so other members of the board can come to support. They usually do the presentations right in the front, in the beginning of the meeting. So you're not talking about having to wait till the end or anything, and it'll take place right up front,
What time what is it, 7 o'clock, the township committee meeting?
7:30.
7:30.
7:30
Yeah.
So,
on June 12th?
Any other questions? Okay. I think everyone's saying thank you for all of your work.
absolutely.
Robin,
Absolutely.
George, and the team on all of this, and the finance committee, and the board members for asking questions. And I think that this is really reflective of a community that is investing in the education of their students. And I'm excited about all the things that we got to fund. And
Yeah.
looking at some of those improvements, like the Millington media room, and maybe we could do some sort of ribbon cutting. Maybe we can do a little ceremony to celebrate these things, because it is exciting. Yeah, it is exciting, so thank you.
And I'm sorry, one thing. This was with no cuts at all to staff. And
Yes.
we actually
Increased
increased
staff.
staff, which is not what you're seeing
Yeah.
in many
Oh, yeah.
townships now. So I think, to have this budget with I don't know how we're doing it, but with rising costs and, well, obviously I know how we're doing it, your team. But rising costs, increasing our staff and not cutting, what you're seeing happen is, it's very uncommon, unfortunately.
It was great. It was a team effort, real
And I
team
will
effort.
say that we are adding staff, but we're doing it very strategically. And, STEAM is, we currently are paying we're paying a science teacher to teach an extra class. So bringing in, another teacher gives that gives the science teacher more time to prep for the other classes, and also brings in a new perspective. So the science teacher's teaching science, and then the STEAM teacher is giving a new perspective on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it's good to bring a new perspective to kids. They'll be really excited about it. It's a very popular class, so it's great that we're doing that. But I just want to say, like, we're not just growing to be, to grow. We're growing for a purpose.
Okay.
If we were into board discussion on the budget, is that correct?
That's what that was.
I'm just making sure. 'cause
Yes.
I thought it was a question and now discussion. I just would like to quote Tim Stiles of Watchung Hills Regional High School, where he was sorry that he had to increase taxes by a mere 1%. And he was quoted when he was here before the Township Committee saying that we have to do what we can to help the local taxpayer. And I think that we should keep that in mind for next year's budget as well.
Okay.
Can I make a point there? While it would be, like, I think we demonstrated that we are making less than, the 2% brings in less than the necessary amount. And if Robin showed that slide, we have gone to under 2% in the past and then had to go up to 6%. So it might look good on paper to go lower, but it always ends up biting everyone. Because you go lower one year and then you're not doing that,
You're mortgaging your future.
you're mortging your future and compounding.
You're not compounding your surpluses, which is, as a taxpayer, and if you look at the numbers, this district takes 1% of a home's assessed value every year. So if you're here for 20 years, that's 1/5 of your home value you paid to this school district, which is nice. But we need to remember that it's money, but it's everybody's, we meet on the streets, money, and we have to treat it as guardians. I'm
We're
not
me-
saying
we're
we're
meeting
not
our
doing
students.
that. I'm not saying we're not doing
But here's the thing,
that.
if you don't invest in your schools, your home value will go down. So while we are custodians of that money, we have to be mindful of spending that money, but saving the money by doing less than 2%, I think does a great disservice to the community, because you're mortgaging the future. And a taxpayer who was on the school board when we were doing less than 2% and saw the lack of care for our buildings and the cuts to staff, I strongly wanted to make it clear that 2% going below it is a dangerous proposition, and that you really, I encourage any towns member to come to a budget meeting, to look at the budget. They have questions, ask the questions, because we have had to go to 6% in the past just to keep the lights on. And that's, we don't ever want to do that again. I don't ever want to vote on a budget that's 6% tax increase, ever. And I just want to make that clear. So, sorry for the soapbox.
Karen, did you have something?
Well, no, I was just gonna say that, I mean, we're taxpayers too. I mean, do you think we're saying, oh, I don't care what we're charging people? I mean, we're thinking about it's coming out of our pocketbook too. Where I think in terms of, I'll call it a fiduciary responsibility, I think we excel at it. I really do. And in terms of when you use the word surplus, it's not like we have money to burn and we're not using it. It's like, it's in a normal budget that you would have, you always want a cushion for things that you don't know upcoming, for the future, for the unexpected. A budget is really a forecast, and you try to make it as close to what actually happens as you can. And as you get more proficient in your forecasting, the error that you make will get less and less. And that means that you're learning how to really use your finances. And that surplus, like I said, is just not money that is not going to get used. It's an important cushion that we need in this district. It's, like I said, the prudence that Robin and Mr. Alexis and Dan before him, and they amaze us at what they have pulled out of the hat, so to speak, in terms of what they've done. Really, to go those years with all we've been through. I mean, all right, I'm on Social Security. The year we got 8% increase in Social Security, that was because of inflation. We stayed at 2%. Case closed. I mean, like, we're good.
Okay, Melissa?
Yeah, the way I see it was in 2020, 2. The average inflation rate was 8%. We stayed at 2, so we somehow cut 6 to try to stay at something more affordable. Last year, I believe in 2023, I think the average inflation rate was 4. So I think it was 4%. So we stayed at 2. So every year it requires constant cutting and creativity. And I mean, I was here when we had to go up to 6% that year. That was brutal. We had to go up 6% and make significant cuts. And the individual students felt that. It was undeniable. The individual students felt that. So I don't see this as an increase. By inflation alone, I see this as cuts every year that have not impacted the students because of everything going on, because of what you've been able to do with the budget.
So I also wanted that when you talk about surplus, every budget I can't budget to exactly what we need, right? Because should a special education student move in, or should something happen with transportation, right? We have to have a little bit extra. We pray that we have that amount extra at year end. I mean, I'm watching it every time we run a bills list. The next thing I do is the next day I'm running to find out where's my surplus, how much surplus do I have? Because come June 30th, one of the things that you're approving is that we're going to take some of that surplus, right? And we're going to divide it up, and we're going to put some into maintenance reserve and some into capital reserve. If we don't put that money back in, that $1 million that we're saying is having no effect, that I don't have to budget, you won't have that amount, right? And there will be no capital, which I think is probably what happened to you in past years, that your buildings went down. If the roof is leaking, we're talking about replacing the roof, we have to have something in the capital reserve to replace the roof. And if we don't have surplus, we have an issue. Same with maintenance. If we have to be able to pull out for maintenance, if something breaks that we didn't anticipate, that is more than we expected, we have to have that maintenance reserve as a cushion. And there is an allotment as to how much we can have in maintenance reserve, and we're trying to always fund it to the max to make sure that keep that maintenance reserve up there so that we have a cushion just in case, which protects the district.
And it allows us to do something like make $1 million worth of improvements and have no additional impact
Right.
on the taxpayers.
When we stop funding that, that's when we have to start increasing what we're going to charge the taxpayers, because we won't have the money to do it.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Any comments from the public on agenda items? At this point, the Board of Education welcomes comments from any member of the public on agenda items only. Please note that as per Board Policy Number 1120, a total of 15 minutes is allocated for public comments at any single board meeting. In order to provide residents the opportunity to comment, individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each at any particular board meeting. The board meeting may extend these limits at its discretion. Any questions should be directed to the board president, and depending upon the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Everyone has the freedom to speak, but please be advised that anything said in public may have legal ramifications, and there is no protection regarding statements made by the public. Please state your name and address before you begin.
Hi, I'm Lauren Franklin. I'm president of Long Hill Education Association. I have a question on number 8 on the agenda. It is the Advocate School Support Solutions for monitoring the contracts of the custodial maintenance, grounds, and management services. We've started this a couple years ago when we had a part-time, when Mark was here part-time. Now we have Frank here full-time. You have somebody that oversees Pritchard. So I'm just wondering what this money is being spent on when we have our own people as buildings and grounds now.
Yeah, Advocate is a service, and they monitor our custodial. They are absolutely excellent at looking at the payrolls, looking at overtime. They monitor, they come in and do checks and give us a 5 or 10 page listing of all the different things that have been looked at on 4 times a year. We talk to them almost weekly. If we have trouble with Pritchard, they are the intermediary. They double check that all the correct certifications are done on all our custodial staff, that the boiler licenses are correct. They tell us how many custodians we need per building, how many black licenses, who has a black license, when they're getting tested, if they've been tested. Just a host of things that are difficult to watch over. And when we didn't have them, that we certainly did not have the responsiveness and the quality of custodial that we have now.
Well, true, because we had totally privatized Pritchard. So now that I thought that was the point, and we all thought that was the point of hiring Frank to oversee all this. So I guess the question, could this money be money better well spent elsewhere since we have our own person now? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, resolutions. Karen, will you move in the minutes, number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Hold on, I'm sorry, who said second?
I did.
Ann, okay. Okay. Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Financials, Crystal, will you move in numbers 2 through 19?
So moved. Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes, but abstain from 2 and 3.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Danielle, will you move in special services numbers 20 through 31?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. And will you move in personnel numbers 32 to 52?
So moved.
Second.
That was Justin. Questions?
Question on number 40. I see that the person here is using up their sick time and their FMLA, New Jersey FLA. But then we have continued for half of a school year. This person's out for that long. Is this not something that we would consider hiring a replacement? I'm not sure what this position is, so I'm not going to say.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, is someone going to be hired for this position?
If the person's out past
Yeah.
the medical leave act,
And without talking about anything specific in terms of this staff
of
member,
course not.
it all depends on the nature of the position. So if it's a classroom teacher, we absolutely do. If it's something that we have to, if we can't find someone to fill in the spot because of the nature of the position, so we look at all those factors.
Fantastic, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Tom, will you move in curriculum number 53?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Justin, will you move in policy numbers 54 and 55?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Melissa, you move in other numbers 56 to 59.
So moved.
Second.
Go with Ann.
I thought Danielle got me there.
Go with Danielle.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Questions?
I just am amazed that they scheduled Panera all the way through to March for their fundraising. I mean, they're really organized.
You're going to thank Adele for that because they wanted just one and she asked what other dates and then she was able to get it just through
Oh, good for her.
the school district and she just put all the dates on there right away so they didn't have to contact her over and over.
Oh, nice.
Ah,
That's
okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Dr. Marr?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any items for discussion? Any unfinished business? Any new business? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Second?
second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstention? Thank you.